That's authentic frontier gibberish, and that's exactly what that is.
Not only does CNN host mock RFK Jr.'s obvious medical conditions that he has no control over, cut him off and censor him during one of the most anticipated nationally broadcast live speeches in American history, the very next morning I returned to that exact same video on CNN's YouTube channel, only to find there's been some interesting edits made to the originally posted video, and they thought you were too stupid to notice.
And now, to throw my support to President Trump, the clauses were free speech, a war in Ukraine, and the war on our children. I've already described some of my personal experiences and struggles with the government's censorship industrial complex. I want to say a word about the Ukraine war. The military industrial complex has provided us with a familiar comic book justification like they do on
monitoring this from RFK Jr., but that was so much.
I'm invading the Ukraine and then to thwart his Hitler-like march across Europe. In fact, tiny Ukraine is a proxy in a geopolitical struggle.
Doug High with us, as well as Johanna Maska. She's the host of the Press Advance podcast. She's a former Obama White House director of Press Advance. He's talking about wanting, and we've seen a press filing or a court filing in Pennsylvania. Yep. So he's saying that he's taking himself off of these ballot access challenges in states where he would be a spoiler, right? These battleground states, like, tell me if I've got this right, Doug. But when it comes to a red state or a blue state, you can sort of, if you want to vote for him, you can then register how you feel about him. And then in the crazy possible chance of a 269 tie between Trump and Harris, then maybe he can just ride that all the way to the White House.
Yeah, I was watching that, and Donald Trump last week stood and said, in front of a bunch of groceries and said, I haven't seen any Cheerios in a long time. I had Cheerios for breakfast. This was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And trying to get any logic out of that is good luck with that. Because it's, one, you can't understand what he says. Two, if you can't understand what he says. And I'm reminded of a line in Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles when somebody gets up and gives an indecipherable speech. He says, who can argue with that? That's authentic frontier gibberish, and that's exactly what that is.
On top of CNN completely mocking and making fun of RFK Jr. for his physical disability, when I originally watched that video on the CNN YouTube channel, the video started playing at 11:52 a.m. But when you watch that exact same video today, it starts playing at 12:01 p.m. So not only did they censor RFK Jr. in mid-speech as he's talking about being censored and talk through 2/3 of his speech, but they chopped off and hit 13 minutes of it too. Like, at what point are their viewers going to start getting curious and saying, okay, wait a minute, something ain't adding up. Something's
weird. Why do you think weird is a more effective attack line against Trump than what Democrats have been done previously, which is argue that he's an existential threat to democracy?
Democrat Robert F. Kennedy joined forces with Republican Donald J. Trump to end corruption and take down the deep state to make America great again is a historical moment. And not only did CNN miss out on that, but they robbed their viewers of it too. And this is why everybody hates Trump. Nobody knows him. These people did exactly what he's accusing them of, right there live for everybody to see in real time. And the really bizarre part is that not only did their viewers not notice it, but if they did, they wouldn't even care. They cut out one of his most key moments during his live speech for them to narrate it, for them to tell their viewers what they think he might be saying. Why not just let him speak? And that goes to show that the media censorship is real. Now, those of us on the right, we know exactly what he said, and we understand the guy. To be honest, I haven't even been the biggest supporter or advocate of RFK Jr. because he's a progressive liberal Democrat, and progressive liberal Democrats tend to birth more progressive liberal Democrats. Now, I like his personality, but his personality is not what affects my kitchen table or my gas tank. I think he's a pretty stand-up dude, but I just don't align with his values, and I don't think that he'd be the right person to run the country based off of his values. However, after tuning into right-wing media like Fox News and Newsmax and actually hearing what he had to say, my views and opinions on RFK Jr. have shifted dramatically.
In an honest system, I believe that I would have won the election. But I'm sorry to say that while democracy may still be alive at the grassroots, it has become little more than a slogan for our political institutions, for our media, and for our government, and most sadly at all for me, the Democratic Party. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. Each time that our volunteers turned in those towering boxes of signatures needed to get on the ballot, the DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters who had signed those petitions. It deployed DNC-aligned judges to throw me and other candidates off the ballot and to throw President Trump in jail. It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate.
We know that the media shapes the opinion of the public, but what happens when they start to shut down voices that challenges the narrative? I believe that media censorship and the algorithm is Trump's #1 enemy in this race. For example, try to post something about him on Facebook. It's not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to see it. Conservative voices have been completely muted, while the liberal voices have been put on full blast. How can RFK Jr. or Trump run a campaign if nobody can hear him? I feel like the GOP and the Trump campaign need to focus a little less on Kamala and more on that algorithm. When all of the platforms like Facebook and this one, where the younger undecided voters are hanging out, are completely flooded with propaganda, how are they supposed to ever hear anything that's true? It's no wonder why they hate Trump. They've never heard anything good about him. If all of the information that you got about your current partner when you were getting to know each other came from their ex or their enemy, how do you think you'd feel about them? You probably wouldn't like them either. The GOP needs to go after that algorithm and get things under control, make things more even. Everywhere you look online, no matter what platform you're on, you see Harris Walsh right there in your face. But as soon as a conservative speaks, it gets turned all the way down. That's what the Trump campaign sounds like online, where everyone's getting their information, whether we're making a post in support of Trump or just leaving a comment to clear up some propaganda lies. The post will get 0 views and the comments get deleted. How is that not election interference? RFK Jr. pointed that out exactly, and that got me thinking.
String of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Oh, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4 days. President Trump, who actually was nominated and won an election, also does interviews daily. How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters. What most alarms me isn't how the Democratic Party conducts its internal affairs or runs its candidates. What alarms me is the resort to censorship and media control and the weaponization of the federal agencies. When a U.S. president colludes with or outright coerces media companies to censor political speech, it's an attack on our most sacred right of free expression, and that's the very right upon which all of our other constitutional rights rest. President Biden mocked Vladimir Putin's 88% landslide in the Russian elections, observing that Putin and his party controlled the Russian press and that Putin prevented serious opponents from appearing on the ballot. But here in America, the DNC also prevented opponents from appearing on the ballot. And our television networks expose themselves as Democratic Party organs. During the 16 months since I declared, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN combined gave only 2 live interviews from me. Those networks instead ran a continuous deluge of hit pieces with inaccurate, often vile, pejoratives and defamatory smears. Some of those same networks and colluded with the DNC to keep me off the debate stage. Representatives of those networks are in this room right now. Your institutions have made themselves government mouthpieces and stenographers for the organs of power. The Democratic Party's censorship of social media was even more of a naked exercise of executive power. This week, a federal judge, Terry Doty, upheld my injunction against President Biden, calling the White House's censorship project, quote, the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America. President Biden and his White House opened up a portal and then invited the CIA, the FBI, CISA, which is a censorship agency. It's the center of the censorship industrial complex, DHS, the IRS, and other agencies to censor me and other political dissidents on social media. Even today, users who try to post my campaign videos to Facebook or YouTube get messages that this content violates community standards, calling on ABC to include me in the upcoming debate. They said that violates community standards, their community standards. The mainstream media was once the guardian of the First Amendment and democratic principles, and it's joined this systemic attack on democracy. The media justifies their censorship on the grounds of combating misinformation, but governments and oppressors don't censor lies. They don't fear lies. They fear the truth, and that's what they censor.
Now, one idea I really do like is the possibility of RFK Jr. becoming the director of the CIA.
Tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome a man who has been an incredible champion for so many of these values that we all share, and we've shared them for a long time. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Bobby called me to express his best wishes. He knows firsthand the risks incurred by leaders who stand up to the corrupt political establishment. And when you stand up, you bring on some trouble for yourself, but you have to do what's right. You have to do what's right for the country. I will tell you, we are both in this to do what's right for the country. That's one thing I can tell you. He lost his father and uncle in service to our country, and Bobby himself was subject to repeated threats to his safety during the course of his campaign while being denied protection by the Harris-Biden administration. And this is a tribute in honor of Bobby. I am announcing tonight that upon my election, I will establish a new independent presidential commission on assassination attempts. And they will be tasked with releasing all of the remaining documents pertaining to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
Now think about this. He's been dead set on digging into conspiracy theories, especially those surrounding his uncle's assassination. RFK Jr. just might be the guy to make this happen. So there you have it. My perspective on RFK Jr. has shifted from skepticism to this might be the guy. And I'm actually excited to see where this goes. I think this could be a really good thing for not only the Trump campaign, but for America. Democrat Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Republican Donald J. Trump joining forces to take on corruption and take down the deep state to make America great again is a historical moment. This could go down as one of the biggest moments in American history. And not only did CNN miss out on this, but they robbed their viewers of it too. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think RFK Jr.'s endorsement of Trump is good for his campaign? Do you think them joining forces would be good for the country? Let me know your thoughts. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and possibly subscribe, all right? I'm going to catch you guys on the next one.